We could just BS. Actually, I'll throw you under the bus a little. Did you read the book
Oh,
yet?
geez, Pete. Um, no, not yet.
Okay.
I've been reading a lot of MySQL documentation right now. It's going great.
Well, to your daughter,
Oh no! Oh gosh, no. I mean,
because that's what the book is for. The book's not for
I
you.
know,
It's for your
I know,
daughter.
I know.
Okay.
No, I've been spending some evenings, furthering my own education and things like that. So
That's good reading. Yeah, no. If you
it's a
picked
bit,
up what I wrote for your own edifice or own interest, I mean, you might laugh, but it's a kid's book.
I know she'll appreciate it. What I've read of it um, has been really good. I've
Thank
liked
you.
it. I laugh, and I actually purposely stopped because I kind of wanted to have that first experience with her, reading all the way through it, just so if I stumbled over things and we
I
could laugh together.
I actually considered, and now that you haven't, I guess maybe I will. Recording myself reading it on like a YouTube video.
Oh, that would be awesome.
But there's there's something magical. There's something English. There's something magical about having your parents read you a book.
Yeah, I would agree.
Um, so I mean, not that I couldn't record it because then you could just not show it to her. But like, I feel like if I did that, I don't know. It's also time. Like, what time do I have?
You know, I feel that. I feel that.
Oh,
I like reading it to her though. She actually likes book series. And I'm totally drawing a blank on the author. You may know of, but it's Gerald and Piggy.
oh, of course.
She loves
It's Mo
Gerald and
Willems.
Piggy.
Who can't love
Yes,
Mo
thank you,
Willems?
thank you. Yes, we have the whole book series. I bought them for her for her birthday, and she loves to go over there and pick out a Piggy book. She absolutely loves Piggy.
Ooh.
So her favorite one is I think where they have an ice cream cone. Gerald drops his ice cream cone.
Ah.
Can't remember. Maybe Piggy drops the ice cream cone, and then they have to share, and she just flips out because there's no cold cone as she calls it. So
That is a good one.
yeah, I would
Uh,
like to. I'd like to read her Shel Silverstein eventually. Like Sarah Cynthia Stout will not take the garbage out.
okay.
That
Yeah,
one's
no,
my
Shel
favorite one.
Silverstein is wonderful.
Yeah.
Yeah, kids books. I mean, I'm trying to think of the younger age. Like we chewed through all the Sandra Boynton,
Yeah.
all that. Um, yeah, I'm trying to think like the non-obvious ones. Like all the obvious ones are obvious for a reason.
Oh
Um,
yeah.
we did a lot of the Maurice Sendak stuff, especially like the
Oh
I'm gonna
yeah.
say
Yeah.
backlist because um, I have a friend who's I'll just make a long story short. I have a friend who is a friend and sent me all the books. So I was like, hey, I got all the books.
Yeah. She has She probably has over 100 books. We signed her up for like an Amazon book box
Mm-hmm.
since she was born, and it's once a month for I don't know, like $20. They'll send. I think initially it was 4 like board books, age appropriate books, and it was
Okay.
just she was hungry for books, and I didn't really have to spend time trying to find what was age appropriate or something that was a board book, and it really ended up being so much more cost effective to get them that way and build our library much more slowly. And she loves them, so it's like a special present in the mail once a month for her. She gets super excited to open it, and she
That's
shows her
awesome.
books to everybody.
Yeah, we live at a wonderful time where kids' books are so easy to identify. Not just like, oh my god, that's a kid's book, like duh. But they have everything geared towards okay, this is a read to your kid, this is a not like, and everything's leveled. So it's not necessarily all right. My kid is 3, they have to read this. It's okay, my kid has passed this level, they can complete this, and getting through this. When they start hitting when they start hitting that weird point where it's, especially if they're reading ahead of them, like my son, he's reading at a middle school level, but he's 9, so he's in 4th grade. So all the middle school topics are above him.
Wow.
Or not necessarily above him, but like maturity wise, he's not there yet. But that's his reading level. So it's like, I guess every book he's going to read is about having your first crush. It's just, and he's just not going to be there, and that's okay. Yeah.
Dad, I have so many questions.
All right. Well, it is 10 after, so we've given some people a chance to get there and chat, and there've been some hellos, but no real questions yet. So I will do my intro for both the show and things like that. So hello everyone and welcome to Fireside Chat. This is Fireside Chat number 5, which is awesome because getting past number 1 is always an achievement for me. So I started this not really knowing where I wanted it to necessarily go. And just for a little backstory, so this is my wonderful guest, Sara McCombs, and I had spoken with her a while ago about doing some sort of show. And this idea kind of came out of those wonderful discussions. And so the first few were kind of more focused on getting into the career of tech and then talking about that and then pulling some stories out from there. And while I loved the idea, I think it tried too hard to do too much and to pull meaning out of some things that don't necessarily have meaning. Like finding a career path is not necessarily always the most meaningful, important thing about a person. So that got me thinking of, well, what is and what is more story worthy? And then, then it came down to like, what does it mean to be yourself? And then how does that career choice fit into there? I think that's more meaningful because to some people, their job is their job. They go there, they make their money, and then they come home and they never want to talk about it. And there's nothing wrong with that. That is a path. And then there's some people where it's like, like you'll find a doctor who, when they're done with their shift, all they're doing is researching new things that are happening in medicine, and they're totally into it. And you find that in tech, you find that in art, like where there's that blurring line. So ramble, yada, yada, yada. So what I'm going to try and do here is, kind of shift that just a little and make it so the questions are, and the stories is really just about who you are and how you became the Sara McCombs you are today. Because that is the best possible Sara that has ever existed. And there is a better Sara in the future. But there's an interesting and wonderful journey that has gotten you here. So it's more focused around that, and I think that hopefully will work out really well. So all of that said, I've done a lot of talking, and anyone who's seen the show before, I try and do as little as talking as possible. But I will intro Sara and then give her a moment to intro herself. So Sara is a coffee-loving industry hopper, going from agriculture to software engineering, passionate about creating communities that support developers at all levels of their journey, beginner to the even most senior. She is a lover of the color green, the outdoors, and quiet 3 a.m.s. So Sara, welcome, and I will give you a moment to say hello and anything else you want to intro with.
Oh my! Hello everyone, welcome. I'm actually really excited to do this. As Nick kind of, spoke to earlier, this is something that we had kind of thrown around, a way to, showcase, what it means to be each of us, to be a developer, to find our own path in life and find our own path in this industry, and just have great conversations, get to know one another a little bit better. So I'm kind of excited to be a guest after having watched the previous 4. So thank you, Nick.
You're very welcome. So let's start early. What was your first memory of really enjoying a piece of technology?
It was early. Oh, it was really early. It was 1989. We had a Tandy computer. I do not remember which model. Like I look at pictures and I cannot for the life of me jog my memory, but I was 6 years old. Um, my mom wanted to learn how to use a computer. She used punch cards in college, knew that this was it. This was the thing that was going to be the future. Wanted to, save up all of her money, working odd jobs to buy a computer for the family and learn herself to just grow, as the times are growing. And I don't know, I don't think I was in kindergarten just yet. I think my birthday probably fell in a strange, time. So I was held over and only went to half day kindergarten. But my mom would every day sit down at the computer. And there was a really large book of like, teach yourself DOS. And my mom would give it to me and I would, learn my letters from it. I would point out things and she would ask me to like read off commands and, I could identify my letters. So I'd be like, C, D, I would just read it off to her. And it got to the point where my mom was essentially like, I don't know, indoctrinating me as a DOS dictionary of sorts. And she'd be at the computer and she'd be like, what's the command for this again? Just blurt it out because I'd apparently memorized it from reading it. And I naturally got interested in it, and I actually kind of a few times be like, no, you do it this way. And I would just like kind of push her out of the way. And my mom was like, we're in trouble, we're in trouble. And that was kind of what did it for me. I just remember enjoying that. It was fun. It was interesting. It was an interaction that I obviously had never had. I was only 6. Not like I really had like huge life moments at that point in time, but it was just different. I liked it. It was a challenge, to absorb everything from this large book with my mother as she was learning. And I think it might have also been the chance to learn something with my mom. So it was also maybe a little, familial connection with my mom. But that's probably it. That's probably the beginning for me.
Now, did that stay steady in the sense that,
yeah.
So did your mom continue that journey and continue going on and keep you part of that?
Yes. Yeah. It was something we kind of did together for several years. Video games, goodness gracious, like various computer games that were educational for me. Mom would always, kind of let me figure them out, just was like, here's the box. You read the instructions. You figure out how this thing's supposed to operate. You figure out where these discs go. We also had I remember a basic word processing program that I would make book reports with. So I read a lot and I wanted to do something. So mom's like, no, make some book reports. And on our dot matrix printer, with a nice white and green lined paper, perforated edges. That was the best part. I would make book reports. Oh my! That sound though. That sound is with me. It's like the sound of a dial-up modem. It's like those sounds are just comforting for me.
Get a 3D printer. You'll be back in the world of rotary sounds. Sorry. So then did your mom ever, now you said she, was in the back in the day of punch cards. Did she have a career in technology?
No. She actually went to college for landscape architecture. Dad's civil engineer. That was just kind of part of their curriculum, how they took some tests and things like that. And my mom and dad actually still have those punch cards. It meant that much to them, technology. And it's, it was kind of nostalgic. They would, bring them out every time we were complained about how hard school was. And just be like, look at this. Did you see this stack? If you dropped these,
debug
you were
this.
in trouble. Yeah. But yeah, she kind of, even though she wasn't in a tech industry, she knew it was important and knew it was the thing to do and wanted to kind of give that to us. I mean, she worked really hard at odd jobs, side jobs, doing whatever she could to buy a computer in 1989. It's not like that was cheap.
No.
But it was important to her, She pushed her learning and I followed right behind her and eventually kind of surpassed her.
Okay. Now, so with this interest, so this was young. So did
Yeah.
how did high school change that?
Mm,
Or did it
there was
not?
definitely it. No, it did. I can't quite remember how I ended up learning HTML. I don't know what I was into, but I remember a summer all I did was teach myself HTML and actually went through like I think a W3C correspondence certification. They mailed you the book. I mean, it was very very early online learning type situation. But I learned I think it was just HTML3 at the time. Um, I'd have to go back. CSS really wasn't a thing. It was a while ago, but I learned that, and that kind of got me addicted, hooked. It was creative. It was challenging. It was a way for me to be analytical. Begged everybody. I was like, just let me make something for you on the internet. It'll be great, you know. But then I went to high school and I ended up being my high school's webmaster, one of their student webmasters. I also took C++ in high school. My high school actually taught C++. So that was my first that type of programming language, and I just kept feeding it. I just kept feeding that interest, and kind of went from there. Graduated high school with a full scholarship for computer science, and things changed, obviously. So
Well, so how what caused the things to change, and how did they change?
yeah, this one's a hard one, and a lot of people I think relate to it. Um, but I was a woman going into a rather male dominated industry. A lot of my classes were 95% men. And I had an advisor who was an older gentleman and point blank questioned my gender for my success. And that was hard. And I listened and I left. I gave up a full scholarship because I didn't have a spine.
Well,
I
I
could not question what was being said to me. Like I didn't believe it, obviously, but it was just I could not believe what I was being told. It was hard.
do
It
you
was just
think it's
hard.
fair to blame yourself for that though?
Not really.
Okay.
I will absolutely 100% agree with that, but I always I have regret that I wasn't stronger, that I didn't believe in myself more. I guess that's the regret because I absolutely have that now. Um, but I also think I have that now because I was challenged and met with so many challenges. So I don't know. That was a hard pivotal change in my life, but it didn't change my interest in the industry. It just changed my major.
Okay.
So
And what did it change your major to, and why?
uh, I went into agriculture, and I originally wanted to pursue animal veterinary sciences in some capacity. I wanted to basically blend technology and veterinary medicine, embracing things like I don't know, like the Da Vinci machine in veterinary medicine,
Mm-hmm.
things like that, especially in certain industries in veterinary medicine are definitely cutting edge, and they were there. But it wasn't quite exactly the fit for me, so I ended up just doing general agriculture and essentially curating my own um, bachelor's and master's degree. And it was kind of interesting. So in doing that, I got a broad education in economics, statistics, contract law, personal property law, land use, vitamin and mineral nutrition, biochemistry. Goodness gracious, what else? It's huge, diverse. Reproductive physiology, uh, a lot, but it matches my interests
Mm-hmm.
because I'm a very curious individual. So it just was the perfect moment that I could create what I wanted to learn and follow what I wanted to learn, and it was I don't know a perfect pairing for me. And it strangely led to a job in research that I ultimately leveraged ag tech tools with. So I still ended up working with technology in a very meaningful way.
Now, was that I'm trying to word this in the most concise way, but was that by choice? Like, was it that you felt the computer science, quote unquote, track? It was like, no, that's clearly not inviting to me. I'm leaving that, but I still love technology. I love developing things like that. So I'm going to keep those skills. I'm just going to bring them somewhere where I'm appreciated. Or I think I just. Oh, there you're back. Okay.
It was a transition to going somewhere where I was appreciated, and it allowed me to apply those interests in non-traditional ways, possibly, and end up in a role I really liked. So it wasn't straightforward, but it mirrored who I am. Does that
Okay.
make sense?
Yeah, no, I mean, it sounds like you were in a situation that was not conducive to your growth, and you left that situation and found one that
Yes.
was. So, if you want to talk about strength, that sounds a lot more like strength than saying I didn't have the spine to stand up. That just sounds foolish at this point.
I know. I know.
So post college. So was this job you were talking about? Was that your first job post college, or was that during college?
It was my first job post college. I had actually ended up working for the university that I went to during college doing research. So it was really kind of a natural transition from one research organization in the university to leading and guiding research external to the university. So it worked in extension, which worked with the public and supporting, specifically in the research that I did, supporting small farmers within my state. So it was definitely an outreach and helping to grow and support very small communities within my state that just otherwise didn't have resources.
Okay. Then, so somewhere along the road, because there's a whole lot of road here, and I'm going to jump around a bit. So somewhere down the line, you became a mom. So how did that shift in identity change your career path and mentality? I guess we'll start at first. It's like you find out you're going to be a mom, so you're preparing for all of the things that come along with that. So how did that change things?
It didn't until I had my daughter.
Okay.
And I think it was probably because it wasn't real until she was in my arms. Like, it was just this thing we were preparing for. It was just like, yeah, it's fine. We'll be prepared. We'll get it when we, when that moment comes. And then it was like, oh, she's here. It's like, crap. Okay, this is real. And it was in one of those moments where I'm, holding my daughter and thinking about, like, what do I want to show her? What do I want to embody for her? What do I want to have her embrace in her life? And I kind of started thinking back through, like, what are the things I regret? And I really regretted not being true to myself. And that involved leaving computer science. Like, the fact that I did not attain that when I was so well qualified hurt, and it had hurt for years. And I was determined to remedy it.
Okay.
So I figured out how, and it was not easy at first. I've had people tell me I have degrees in dirt. I didn't belong in computer science. Didn't bother me. I'm pretty strong now. It's just like, yep, don't want to work with you anyways then, if that's your philosophy. But I learned, how do I prove the skills that I had? Okay, let's create stuff. Let's create a portfolio. Okay, how do I do that? How do I have accountability? Okay, let's find a boot camp. Let's develop myself and develop skills as quickly as possible. Let's create things that I can show that I have. Let's go from there. Um, Ended up going to a boot camp, graduating in 10 months because I did the part-time program because I'm a mom and she was 2 years old at the time. So it's like, I had a lot on my plate. But it was enough. It reignited a passion that was inside of me and had been inside of me for a very long time. Even when I worked in agriculture, like I didn't stop learning. I actually had to learn Rails as a program director in agriculture as a way to be able to represent my own research data, because the communications IT department, web design department, wouldn't give me the time of day to create a custom template to allow me to showcase my data in a proper fashion. I was like, fine, figure it out. And they taught me. That was a long time ago. And I enjoyed it, It kind of gave me the fix again of coding, being creative, problem solving. And I remembered how much I liked this industry. And I just found my way back. It took me a while, but I found my way back.
Now, because it's interesting, because you say you've been out, but you've had your feet in the water. You've dipped. I mean, I wouldn't say you had a full-on developer role, but I mean, if you're in Rails and writing a report, you're in tech, and tech is clearly an extremely broad industry, or at least a broad skill set. So, what to you drew that line between being on the outside, even though literally you're writing Rails code, whereas now you like, what is it that's different for you?
I would have to say it was probably community.
Okay.
When I worked, in research and coding the website, doing the Rails work, it was me at my own computer in an office on a farm. Like, it's what you would think an office on a farm looks like and smells like. Like, that was not Silicon Valley. It was like,
for those who've never been on a farm, can you explain that it doesn't smell like nice fresh wheat?
No, it smells like animals, dirty animals. But yeah, it just, I was alone. I was by myself, and nobody I worked with understood what I was doing. And not that I needed that pat on the back or that congratulations. It was just, I was by myself. There was no one to talk to. There was no one to share with the fact that figured out the damn bug that's been bugging me for 3 days. It's like I really had to do it on my own, and I didn't like that. And kind of think that's why I'm so darn passionate about ensuring that there's community for everybody now. I didn't like being alone.
So I guess that's a good segue into so now there's virtual coffee for you.
Yes,
so why don't you explain a little about what that is? I guess how you got involved, started in that, and then I don't want to force too much, but maybe what your vision or what your hope out of that is.
Sure. We're in a pandemic. It's weird right now, mental health is important. The fact that we have so many of our routines interrupted, the fact that, our interactions and relationships with others are so interrupted right now. Becca Weigel just said, hey, I want to talk to some people. And she started, these Zoom chats. There was no structure really. It was just, let's get together and just talk about stuff. And I attended one. Wasn't the first one. I'm not even quite sure when the first one was, but I was maybe number 4, the fourth one that happened. And it was just like, oh my gosh, I need this in my life. Like this is the community I need and I want. And this is supporting my mental health, and it's supporting so many others' mental health right now. And we're we were joining to just have conversation, but we're leaving inspired and educated. And I don't know, for me personally, like feeling like I had more direction in where I wanted to go with things, or more answers, or more people to lean upon, when I needed help. And I reached out to Becca, and I was like, Becca, you can't do this alone. This is going to grow. This is going to just take off. I want to help you. I want to see this grow. I'm here. Let's do this. And that's literally how it started. Becca and I met, talked about like, hey, what are we doing? What is this? What is this thing? And we've just continually grown it as the community's grown, as the needs have kind of arisen. Creating everything from like creating interview series, like mock interviews, to kind of alleviate some fears of like, what is an interview in this industry, and how do you manage certain types of interviews, and the different personalities that you meet in interviews. We have a great Slack community where people are offering office hours on a variety of topics. They're now offering brown bags, or like hour-long lunch and learns, depending on the term that you're familiar with, on a variety of topics. I think the one that I attended today was on freelancing, all the ugly bits, just the stuff that most people don't know diving into it, that you typically learn the hard way. So it was just someone sharing what they've learned along the way with everyone else. The vision for it is to just keep growing it, to just keep supporting the community as the needs arise. I want to see more people supported in their journeys. I want to see, newer developers, being given the confidence that they can do this, that there are people that they can lean upon. I want to allow more senior individuals to provide mentorship that they may not have in their jobs or in their lives, and just be able to transfer knowledge that they have. I'm a firm believer that anybody can mentor anybody. It doesn't matter who you are, what what your background is. There's always something that you can teach another individual. And that's what's happening. We're learning about more things than just tech. I mean, we have an amazing food channel, and I'm inspired to bake bread that I'm failing desperately at. Create things like, I don't know, Vic, what did you make? Goodness gracious, the lemon thing. Like candied lemons. Like, I want lemons now. It's just so much teaching and sharing, and it's glorious, and it makes this journey so much richer, because I'm not alone. I can share when I fix that bug. I can share whenever it's my own misspelling of why it was broken in the first place, and somebody else goes, oh yeah, that sucks. Yeah, I feel you. But I want that for everyone. And I want that for people who, like myself, were not necessarily supported in the beginning, or maybe don't have as many opportunities as others, or are 37 and doing a new career like I am. So we're all here for each other.
Now, early on, back in your middle school, high school ages, the internet was still very budding, is I guess one way of putting it. But did you have any community like that? I mean, I know you said you had your mother, and she seemed extremely supportive.
Yeah.
But what was that like for you? Because it sounds like you had a wonderful learning journey then, and maybe it. I don't know how active your mother was in that when you were older, but what was your network like then, and was that enough for you? Because clearly you clinged on, like you were interested. But what was community like for you then?
Smaller. There were a few individuals that I remember chatting with, and I could not tell you for the life of me, how I would run into these individuals, but it was just one or two people that I might be able to ask a question of. I don't know if it was instant messengers, or if it was forums, or whatever it was with how people interacted or talked. That's what I used. That's how I found somebody, but it was much harder. I often felt alone And my mom was my biggest resource. She couldn't answer a problem easily for me. She's not learning the same things I was, but she would grab the book that I was looking at and help me look and be a second set of eyes, or buy me another book, take me to the library. She took me to the library quite often and just did what she could.
Now, when you were on your own, young, what were the things you were coding? Like, what were the things you were working on? I know you said you were trying to make a website for everybody you knew.
Yeah. At that time, HTML, yeah, definitely HTML. That was interesting for me. And I actually originally started coding with pen and paper because I didn't always have time at the computer. So I would code everything on pen and paper and then go home and put it into the computer and see if it worked. That was a slow process, obviously. But I just thought that way. You know, I wanted to make things. I wanted to create things. And that was the first way I learned how. Probably also just trying to not break the computer because I was too curious about how it worked as well. We had a computer repair book, literally, because I would take it apart every so often. So, oh, what's this part?
So I guess, yeah, so when it comes to the hardware aspect of it, was there anything, I mean, you just said you'd take it apart and say, what is this? Like, was it like, this doesn't work? Or was it like, I'm bored with typing HTML, so let's rip this puppy open and see what's going on inside?
I was famous for taking things apart because I wanted to see how they worked. I wanted to know. And I probably also slightly blame my mother on the fact that she brought home a book about, you know, like a PC repair or something like that. Maybe something like upgrading memory or, you know, new motherboard. I don't really know exactly what the goal was, but it was to make the computer better. And I started looking at it and I was just like, well, let's just take it apart. Let's just see what happens. And I got myself into a few corners where I forced my family to buy new computer parts, but you know, all right. Everybody puts a processor in wrong once, right? Come on.
Well, back in the days with the extended gold pins, all it took was one little bend, and it was like, oh, well, I'm bending pins back for the next 3 hours.
Yep.
So, now, in college, was it early on or later on when you had your Switch?
I had actually been there for 2 years.
Okay.
So I endured 2 years of it. It was hard. I don't think anyone's necessarily prepared for the first like 2 semesters of college. I'm pretty sure my data structures class would indicate I wasn't quite prepared as I normally would be. But it got a really good foundation, and it was interesting. But I always felt othered there, and that was hard.
And how would you contrast your experience in college? Obviously, the time period is probably, 10 years difference between college and when you took your boot camp. And your boot camp was obviously virtual. But how would you describe the differences, one, on the education and the approach of the education, and then the other is the social and community aspect? So obviously, your college was not the most supportive, on that aspect. But obviously 10 years is a big change. But that said, the world has also not changed nearly as much as we would like to hope. Right. So I'm interested in that, what the contrast is between those experiences.
Yeah, it was, I actually felt the boot camp was a little bit more welcoming for me. So at that time, I already had a bachelor's and a master's degree. So I know how to learn. But I wanted practical, hands-on guidance, education. And as much as I wanted to achieve and finish the computer science degree, I did not have the money, the time, nor the desire to just go through the traditional college education, nor repeat what had happened previous. But I found the online boot camp to be much easier for me. I was a mom, I could do both. I knew my learning style very well. We used Slack and Zoom to communicate. I interacted as much as I possibly could with my cohort. Went to every virtual lesson, every study group, attended extra sessions when they were offered, and I eventually kind of settled in with two other moms in my cohort, and we just constantly kept driving each other to excel. Just constantly kept being each other's cheerleader, and we got through it. Our boot camp was interrupted by a lot of global events in 2020, but we did it. And I actually found the online environment to be much more welcoming, much more inclusive, much more to my learning style, because it was practical, direct knowledge. It showed me the nitty gritty. This is how you do this. Great. On to the next thing. I was thankfully already graced with 2 years of theory and some underlying fundamentals, and I could build upon that. Like, yes, granted, it had been several years since I had learned those things, but there's this thing called the internet and Google and documentation, and just look it up. Like, I don't need to memorize big O notation. I know the gist of it. Like, cool, great, I got it. But I enjoyed just doing and creating in the boot camp, not sitting in lecture, taking a test. My tests were build something, then do a code review. Talk about everything. Talk about how it works. Talk about how the underlying mechanisms work. Tell me everything about it. And for me, that was more of a confidence builder of, I know what the hell I'm doing, than just taking a test.
And how did you come to pick the boot camp that you chose? Did you consider a lot? Was it just kind of like, this is the first one that came up and they paid for a Google ad, so I'm going to give them my money? Like, what was that process?
So I live in West Virginia. I don't have a lot of in-person opportunities, because I did consider in-person, because just having a person to lean over and be like, do you get this? Did you understand that? Is nice. But I had to look at online opportunities, and the one I selected was offering scholarships, so I applied to it, and I did receive a scholarship to attend. So free money is pretty enticing, but it was also Ruby and a Rails based education, at least for parts of the curriculum, and I already knew Rails, and I was really excited to learn it better. So that was ultimately like another deciding factor for me.
Okay. Is there anyone? I know there's been a bunch of chat going through, a lot of talk of the wonders of GeoCities and asking to join web rings. So if there's any questions from chat, now would be a wonderful time. So what are some fun memories you have about the old internet? As someone brought up GeoCities, so I guess I have to. But like, what
GeoCities? Wow.
What are those nostalgia moments of the internet, or maybe coding, or just one specific moment of great joy within coding that you can remember from your youth?
I honestly, I don't know. I mean, I think it would probably be like the things that define my generation, per se, like GeoCities. I mean, you had 7, right? I mean, you needed one in each community, and they all look different. I don't know. Then there was like, I don't know. I think Neopets was a thing. Then there was MySpace. Oh my gosh, Tom was friends with everybody, and you had to learn how to customize it to be one of the cool kids. And I don't know. Like, I think those are just like the memories I have, and I honestly would not want to see any of my creations I would cringe so hard. But I mean, I thought I was grade A. Oh, I don't know. I honestly don't know. Other than those are just like the memories I have of like experiencing those things that began the internet and evolved, thankfully, into other things.
Oh. Is there anything that I've missed to ask you?
Oh goodness gracious. Um, I don't know. I don't think so. No, I I like I like I like this industry. It's definitely my identity because I'm learning every darn day. I actually like reading documentation. Some of my favorite things in working through my master's degree was actually doing case briefs in my law classes and like just reading into the nitty gritty and just pulling out the chunks that were relevant. And like, to me, reading documentation, like as painful as some of them can be sometimes, is still interesting. It's still fun because I'm learning. It's like I'm always finding something new. I'm always finding some random method that solves a problem I might have had 3 months ago, and it's like, oh well, that would have been nice to know. And
So
I don't feel like you can do that in any other industry to learn this much all the time.
I have a non-tech question, and then we'll go back to tech a little bit.
Okay.
What type of coffee bean are you making your brew with these days, Sarah?
I like really, really dark roast coffees. My just general drink of choice is a triple espresso, and I might have a couple of those a day. I like very strong coffee.
Now,
I,
help me out here, because
yeah,
I was once told, and I'm often told things that are completely incorrect, but for some reason my brain is wired to think they're correct. I was told that a lighter roast has more caffeine, and that a darker roast does not. It's just more full-bodied and flavored.
to be honest, that's one of those like let's go see what the documentation says. I mean, it definitely has different flavor palettes. There's different acid levels. It's like chocolate. It's like it's all sugar. There's sugar in it. Like,
Oh, I
that's
will
all you care
happily
about.
disagree with you on chocolate. As a lover of proper dark chocolate, especially dark chocolate mixed
Yes,
with nuts, because you get the fat in there as opposed to the sugar.
extra
You give me
extra dark.
like a standard Hershey's bar. It's like
It's gross. Yeah.
yeah.
No, I'm with you on that one.
So I have a few questions that I've ended most of these chats with. So I'll start with what's your ideal position? Like where work wise, where do you want to get to?
I don't know. I like I like really hard problems to solve. Um, I enjoy that. I enjoy the challenge. So I see positions that will always challenge my knowledge or always challenge what I'm doing in some capacity. I see myself eventually reaching, a leadership role in some capacity. I see myself in a position where I can mentor so many other individuals, share the things that I've learned in my life, share ways to help others grow in their own journey. I don't know, whatever embodies that is where I'm willing to go. I probably one day will even create my own thing, create my own, I don't want to say startup because that's a whole other bag of tricks, I guess, but it's there. I believe I can do anything I set my mind to, and I'm willing to do it.
Okay. If you could go back in time and tell 3 sentences or less to your teenage self, and it can't include stock symbols, what would it be? What would the message be?
Mm. You're smarter than you give yourself credit for. You're braver than you give yourself credit for. You're stronger than you give yourself credit for. Those three things are what I know to be very true right now, and are what help me hit the ground running and tackle anything that's thrown in front of me. Like I always tell people, I do very well when thrown in the deep end of anything. You know, don't start me out in the kiddie pool. Don't start me out in the easy entry. Just go straight to the deep end. I do very well there. I was not that brave when I was much younger, and I would love to have seen where I would be now if I had the courage and belief in myself as I do now.
And for people who are still in that journey and still they're still timid. They're still not quite sure of their footing, and some people are not always excited about being thrown in the deep end.
I understand.
Is there any advice you would give to them to point them in a direction of gaining confidence?
Find community. 100% find community. It is okay that we are all on different paths, different levels, that different things work for us. You know, you need to do you the best you can, but find community that will tell you how smart you are when you don't believe in yourself, that will help you see the answer whenever you've stared at it for way too long. Find community that will celebrate your wins and will cry at your losses with you, because that has made the entire difference for me in my career.
And where might one be able to find such a community? Is there a web address that you might be able to say?
Virtualcoffee.io.
Now, does that actually link to our Slack as well? Because I have a feeling it doesn't.
It does not, because we want to meet you at one of our events and invite you personally.
Ah, okay. All right. So yeah, so go to virtualcoffee.io, and there is a link to join one of there's 2 a week, and then we have special events.
Correct. Tuesdays at 9, and currently EDT, because we're in daylight times. And then Thursday at 12 noon. Those are our standing kind of coffee chats. Topics vary. Sometimes they're all over the place, but that's okay. It's just a chance to kind of have community and chat and grow.
And so, again, chat, if there's any questions you want to throw in there. Otherwise, do you have any questions for me?
Good one. Wait to see number 6.
Yeah, well, we next week in chat is TK, who I will be interviewing next week. In fact, I was supposed to this week, but I couldn't do Tuesday, and he couldn't do Wednesday, so it will be next week. So that will be a fun one as well.
I look forward to it.
Yeah. All right. Well, I'm not seeing any questions. I'm seeing a lot of silliness in chat. But I'm not seeing any direct questions. So otherwise, I don't know if you have to run or not. We can chill around. Otherwise, this has been on the hour, and for the first time, I actually hold to a time schedule.
Awesome.
So thank you so much. I really appreciate you being here, and I really appreciate your honesty and your journey. You should not have any regrets.
I no longer do.
I think the only person who should have a regret is the advisor who gave you that advice, because that is horrible and terrible.
Yes.
And that is not what I mean. Yeah, but I think it feels like you made the right decisions. And
I think so.
If this was a movie, you would have punched him and walked away and still made the same decisions. And
Yeah.
not that I condone in any way, shape, or form violence, but it would have made for a very emotionally charged, wonderful scene. But yeah, I'm happy that you made those decisions because it's brought you down the path that's brought you here.
Yeah.
So, yeah. So thank you very much, and I will let you go. And for anyone else, I will just give the reminder that if you have Amazon Prime, so if you're already paying for that, you get a free Twitch subscription every month. And if you throw that my way, that turns into charity dollars. So I literally take all that money and it gets dumped into charity. So if you press the subscription button, which I'm not sure where on the screen that is anymore, because, but if you press that, one of the options is Twitch Prime, and you just press that and you just log in with your Amazon account, and bam, for free, no money to you, sends money to a charity. In this case, it's Mary's Meals. So you can go ahead and you can do that, and that's wonderful. Otherwise, thank you again, Sarah. Your Twitter handle is Dino Mama, which I will ask one little why. So, how long ago did that come, and why Dino Mama?
Yeah. So it's been there for a while. I don't know. I would have to look on my Twitter account to figure out when I signed up.
So it was before you were a parent.
It was before I was a parent. Yes, it's actually it references my dog Radar, who we lovingly referred to as a baby dinosaur, because if you've seen the TV show Dinosaurs and are familiar with Baby Sinclair, and when
I'm the baby, gotta love me. I can't do that voice. I'm sorry. That was bad.
Other than the mama would feed him, he would literally pick up the dog food bowl and toss it at you. So he became known as the baby dinosaur because only I could feed him. Like I could prepare the food, I could, give it to somebody else, and if it wasn't me, he would toss it. But I could then pick the bowl up and hand it to him, and he would eat it. He was very difficult. I loved him. So difficult. So that was it. I was the Dino Mama.
That is certainly a good story, and it's wonderful how like those events now, like that's your Twitter handle. Although you do get a rename, but would you even use it?
No, I wouldn't, because I also feel like my daughter is a Toddlersaurus Rex, so it's still very on point for me. Like, very on point. Okay with that.
I like that, Toddlersaurus Rex. I have not heard that one before.
Accurate.
How did Nick Ruffalo get his Twitter handle? Branding. The advice that build a brand. So
Announce
yeah.
it for everyone.
Although if the question is how did I get the handle of the Wizard Loon, the short version of that is I wrote a fantasy series when I was in high school, and the main character is a wizard whose name is Loon, and it is because I was bastardizing the Gaelic Llewellyn, because that is a common-ish name in Welsh, actually, I believe it is. So I liked that name, but I wanted it to not be that name because it's long and hard to say, so I just shortened it. And it's also one of those things that it's got a whole bunch of extra letters in it that seem all fancy, but it's really just pronounced Loon. So that was how I got that name. Not yeah. I wish it was more exciting, but that's about all. TK says every other sentence Nick says about himself is more interesting than anything you've ever done. That is not true. Just because I wrote a story doesn't mean it was good. So unless you read it, yeah, no. it was probably not very good by high school standards, and I'm sure if I read it again now, I have it somewhere. I actually like sent it off to be printed because I was like, yeah, I made a book. My writing has improved, but I practice it a lot.
Proof. Nobody wants to see what they wrote 3 years ago, 2 years ago. No. Don't make me.
Well, I still have my fictionalization of how the internet works. And I'm always tossed with whether or not I should resurrect that. So I wanted to teach how the internet works, like literally how routers work and how how the backbones work, how pipeline, and just like how the many layers of TCP/IP and things like that. But I was like, I have to do this in a way that actually makes people interested. So I wrote this fictional thing where someone, like, I don't even remember how it starts, but they get abducted and thrown on this like medical chair, and then they get knocked out, and then they wake up in this room, and it's the highest order level. So they are literally now an HTML tag, and they get assigned a class and an ID. So it teaches the basics of like HTML, but when they want to get anywhere or whenever there's a request, everything follows the layers. Like when they get in the taxi, so taxis are what take everywhere. So that each taxi has they go from one IP address to the other, but they have to jump through router points. It's probably terrible. Like I've never let anyone else read it, but in my head it's a good idea. But I'm probably not up for the task of actually writing it.
If that makes absorbing the OSI model, TCP/IP, any of that remotely enjoyable, then yes, do it, because that would be beneficial for people who are coming from very non-technical fields to just wrap their head around, like, how does this work?
Well, have you ever read Lineland or Flatland? Okay, so what inspired me is the book Flatland, which, by the way, if you haven't read it, Flatland goes on your to-do list. Lineland you can ignore. So Flatland was a book that usually was recommended in high school, usually our high school age because we're the same age. But it is a mathematican's journey to explain how dimensionality works. And it follows a three-dimensional beast who then goes into a world which is two-dimensional. And these two-dimensional beasts can only ever understand what is two-dimensional because they don't understand this third dimension. So they have all these rituals and all these movements and things about what is it like to live in a two-dimensional space. But it's told in how culture would change because, if a woman wants to dance, she just wiggles her, the back end of her line. Like, I don't remember the full details, but it tried to help conceptualize that. And then where it smacks you in the face is then the three-dimensional beast is visited by a four-dimensional beast who's like, wait, you can't see all this insanity going on around you? And they're like, and the three-dimensional's like, wait, there's nothing. And they're like, how can you not see all this? And they're like, but it was exactly the same experience that the 3D guy went when he went into 2D. So it was like kind of like that, you can't wrap your head around it, but it still can be there. And it's also like 200 pages. But yeah, so that was my goal with this book, is to introduce things as cultural elements. So for example, the difference between class, style, and ID was that each person had a unique identifier. That was truly unique to them. Nobody else could have it, and it was how they could be directly called. Your class then defined things that anyone who had that class could have. So if you have a certain job or things like that, so it gives you certain parameters. But then you have a style, which allows you to choose your own hat or things like that. But that was not necessarily who you were. It didn't affect your ID. So it was that whole concept of, well, how can you explain these three things in a cultural aspect? So people used style to override things that were class attributes. Again, I can't say I pulled it off really well. I hope I'm explaining it in a unique way.
I think so. I would read it.
I'm actually curious how far I actually got in the story. Hold on. I'm gonna have to scroll really far in my documents. Actually, what did I call it? I know it. Oh, I know. It was really bad. Hold on. It was called 9600 baud. Oh gosh. All right. How many words did I get? Not very far. Let's see. Help, tools, word count. I got 5,000 words into it. In fact, here, I will do something that I have not done in a very, very, very long time. Anyone with a link can comment. Sure. I will share this. I'm sorry, chat. I have shared it in chat, and I will. Yeah. I don't know what spurred me to. Oh, and I obviously start this with what do you do with a BA in English, because let's just say I was inspired a little bit by what was that play? The one with the Muppets. Da-da-da-da-da. Avenue Q. That's it. Have you seen Avenue Q? I lost you. You're either muted or not loud enough.
If I've seen it, it's been a while.
Oh, okay. Well, one of the main songs is the main character has a BA in English, and he's saying, I have no job opportunities because I have a BA in English. Well, to call it a Muppets play, so Nick T is saying there's a Muppets play. There's a play that's done exclusively with puppets. Well, actually, there are two human characters. It's meant to be a parody of Sesame Street, but it is not kid appropriate at all. In fact, one of the main songs is "The Internet is for Porn." That is one of the main songs in it. The Grover-like character.
I would remember that. So
yeah,
no,
you would remember that. No.
I don't think I've seen that.
Oh. That is one of the things I truly enjoy about living near New York City, is I get to go see Broadway plays. Like, yeah.
I miss that. I grew up in the DC metro area, and just to have access to plays, symphonies, like everything. We have some here. It's just not as large of a calling. So.
Yeah, no, New York is a city unlike anything. Like, even DC, like you had Broadway, but it was, I don't want to say
different.
watered down, but it was just, yeah.
Better than here, though.
Oh, yeah. Oh. I forget where I was, but I mentioned something about going to see something at community theater. And they were like, oh, that's so terrible. I'm like, no, our community theater is actually really good, because like community theater is what got rejected from Broadway and what got rejected from off Broadway, but it's still amazing. Yeah, whereas, some places like community theater is the best you're going to get. And oof, I don't know. I'm sorry. I'm a bit of a theater snob.
That's okay. Once you've seen one major Broadway, that's it. Like that's the bar. I have seen that. I know I am lacking every other time I see something else. It's horrible.
So Nick is saying he was traumatized by seeing Cats live. Don't watch the movie then. I'm not sure what it was you were traumatized by. But the movie made me hurt. Like, it just, the logic and like the question of why. So the play Cats, and I won't rant too much, the play Cats is about nothing at all. Like, literally, it is about nothing. There's no storyline. There's nothing. It literally is, here are the different types of cats there are. Let's all laugh about it because cats are cute. Like, that is the storyline of the original book. And then the play was like, okay, let's introduce a few characters, and then there's this thing that happens where this old cat says this cat can then be reborn, or this cat is kind of special or something. That's the play. But the play has beautiful dancing, it has wonderful costumes. Like, it's at least entertaining in the sense that it's a play and people sing cool songs, and that's kind of why you go see a Rodgers and Hammerstein type play. The movie, one scene, the cat to scale is 4 foot tall, and then the next scene, the cat to scale is 2 foot tall, and then the next scene, the cat to scale is 1 foot tall, and then they're back to 4 foot tall, and then 2 foot tall. And some of the scenes are like Blair Witch style, where it's like they put a GoPro on one of the cat's heads, and you just see things bumping up and down, and like it's from their perspective jumping between the beams. And then the next one is like a really bad IP camera in the corner, so all you see is 700 cats all mingling in this, and it's just terrible. It is just, but when you know how much money, and it's not like if this was some high schooler or some college kid's project that they had to do, it's like, okay, you know what, they tried too hard, some things didn't work. This was a multi-million-dollar movie where like Taylor Swift was not only in it but helped direct it, and you have all these wonderful names, and you're like, what were they thinking? And I just, yeah, so please don't watch the movie. No, it was terrible. It was terrible. And the worst part of it for me was it was the last movie I saw in theaters before the pandemic happened.
That sucked.
Laser Cats the musical, I would have loved it. I would have rather seen Laser Cats or Ninja Cats the trilogy, any of this. Muppet Cats, all of these are better. Garfield, the Garfield movie was more enjoyable, and the Garfield movie was terrible. But hold on, I have to... Rotten Tomatoes, Cats. Let's see, hold on. Cats on Rotten Tomatoes got a whopping 20%. A whopping 20%. So I'm even shocked about that. I mean, I guess there are worse movies out there, but it was yeah. That said, though, Rent the movie, I think Rent did a good job as a movie versus, like a conversion from the play to the movie. I think Phantom of the Opera did an interesting job. It was different, and I don't agree with all the different, but I think for a movie you can't necessarily wanna, I think. But
I think it was a good pull for people to get an interest.
Yes. Yeah, no, I think musical theater can be wonderful. It can also be terrible. I've been involved in way too much musical theater. I shouldn't say way too much. I've been involved in quite a bit. I did musical theater in college, but I can't sing. I am terrible at singing. But I apparently can act and I can dance. So I always get the weirdest roles. They're like, all right, what's a main role we can give you that you don't have to actually sing too many songs, or you can sing as little as possible, or you'll just open your mouth and we'll have someone backstage sing. I'm like, we'll figure this out.
I can't do either. I can't, or any of those. I can't sing. I can't dance.
Aw.
I don't think I can act. I don't have a poker face either, so it's like I'm just real. Very real.
Well, what were your extracurricular fun side activities during college?
In college?
Well, high school / college.
Because
that's when you get the opportunity to do these silly things like acting and.
I rode horses. I competed in equestrian events. I did hunter jumper events.
Well, that's pretty awesome.
It's different. I enjoyed it. I had a bad accident.
Oh.
I enjoyed it though. Not the accident, the riding.
So when did you get started with that?
Maybe like middle school time. I love animals. One reason why I went to agriculture, I just love animals. Um, and mom would always take me to like the barns, local barns, to just look at the horses, feed the horses carrots, just visit with the animals because we grew up in the DC metro area. It was like the only horses we saw were the ones, mounted police, and like, you really weren't supposed to go pet them. And um, so I eventually started riding, and I started competing because it was a challenge, and it kept me growing and I guess evolving, and I enjoyed it. I eventually did quit after I had my accident. It was pretty bad, but I will leisure ride now, but I just can't compete anymore.
I can understand that. So what's something about competitive horse riding / jumping that I would never know as someone who has probably only ever caught a few moments of a horse jump on a TV show? Not like TV, but like, on in TV passing.
Um, I don't know. You're literally only on the horse by your knees and your stirrups. Your butt's out of the seat when you go over the jump. Um, and the horse does all the work, obviously. So you're not jumping over the fence. But if the horse decides it's not going to jump, it's not going to jump. So it's a very, I don't know, symbiotic relationship between a rider who can anticipate when to alleviate the weight in the saddle and get up, as opposed to like, when not to, because it's not intuitive sometimes. It's just a relationship that you have to have with the animal. It's actually really hard.
I assume it's not easy. I mean,
no, you use abdominal muscles that you don't realize that you actually have when you start horseback riding. Learning to ride in English explicitly, it's a little painful at first, just because you have to obviously start using these muscles. And there's something called a posting trot, which is a trot where you essentially are going up and down, bouncing in and out of the saddle as a way to alleviate your weight from the back of the horse and kind of move in sync with the animal a little bit more. And it's essentially, think about like trying to purposely sit up or stand up out of your chair and sit back down, but you're only moving 4 inches. And you have to do that hundreds of times a minute. It's a little intense.
That sounds it. So now I've heard that, especially like racehorses, they know when they've won or not, and they will get emotional. So did you experience that with the horses and jumping? And like, would you ever have a day where you were like, all right, we're gonna jump today, and it looks at you and it's like, nah, nope, or I'm gonna jump and I'm gonna miss just the top bar, and I'm gonna knock it off because I don't like you today? Like, what were there any personality issues?
Yes. And my accident, I'm pretty sure, happened because my horse was having a bad day. It's all good. I mean, I don't know, it's an interesting story. But animals have personalities. Animals have tendencies. I could dive into the nitty gritty. I did take a master's level animal behavior class, which was amazing. And I now watch birds because of it. They're very fascinating. But yes, they sense things just like we do. The best animals are athletes, just like humans are. I mean, like, I'm sure there's a Tiger Woods horse, and there's, a Roger Federer horse, and it's just they exist because they enjoy running, they enjoy racing, they enjoy doing these things, and they would do them out in the field or on the track. It's someone who genuinely enjoys doing something will do it no matter the venue. So yes, they do know that. No difference than like a dog that likes playing frisbee, or dogs that dock dive, and they do it because they love it.
Awesome. All right. Well, it is 11:25, and people are starting to sunset. So, thank you very much again. This has been wonderful.
You're welcome.
Any parting words? Otherwise, we'll say goodbye.
Just thank you for coming. Thank you. I appreciate it.
All right.
Appreciate the
Thank you,
opportunity.
everyone. And I will see you next Tuesday. Bye.
See ya.